Zelda Ocarina of Time is a game that I finished almost a week ago, and there's quite a bit of stages in the game, dungeons to be specific. So, today, I'm going to be ranking every dungeon along with the meta dungeons. I made it up myself just now, so you're likely not going to understand. But a meta dungeon is the place that you go to before you get to the dungeon, like Gerudo Fortress, for example, or the Ice Cavern. I'm also going to be including those basically for the full feel of it. My ranking is going to be based off how good their design is, how fun they are to go through, and I'll probably sprinkle in a few parts of the video talking about the music. So, let's get started. 12. The Ice Cavern. Yeah, I know. I'm surprised that the water dungeon isn't my least favorite too. But in a way, it's kind of similar, as in the Ice Cavern is similar. But let's just get to explaining the cavern. So, to start off, I'm going to just talk about the annoying freezers that you'll find every 2.5 seconds. As the name implies, they freeze you. But if you don't play a lot of Mario Party, your button mashing skills are not going to be good enough. So if you're not going to be mashing A fast enough, it's going to take away lots of your health away. Same thing goes for the bats. They freeze you as well, and they so happen to be in the most annoying part of the cavern. It still makes good use of the blue and red fire. The blue fire one melts red fire and vice versa. That's not to say it's a bad dungeon, but it has lots of well-hidden skulltulas around the place the whole time. There's also a room where you have to get multiple silver rubies. I like the platform for that section, and it's well done and isn't annoying. And this is also the dungeon where you find the iron boots. Granted, it's not that useful in the game. Well, until the... Come on, 11. Water dungeon. I stepped one foot into this dungeon. I already knew I wasn't going to have a fun time. I'd be amazed if you were surprised that this was the most criticized and hated part about the game. This dungeon's infamous for having you switch boots from the Kokori to iron ones. At first it's really annoying to keep having to do it, but when you're used to it, it's not as bad, I guess. There's basically 3 parts where you can drain and raise the water. It's hard to memorize where you're supposed to do it, and it becomes a chore to get to all of them in the first place. Not to mention that Princess Ruto literally tells you to follow her, but then she disappears. I also don't like the boss, honestly. It's really annoying to get Morpha out of the tentacles, but thankfully there is a way to cheese it by cornering Morpha, but I couldn't even pull that off. But there is 2 things that I actually do like about this dungeon. The music, obviously, since it's one of the most beloved themes in the game, and fighting Dark Link. The fight with Link isn't really hard, but it does progressively get harder in the fight. Harder as in it starts easy, but it still stays easy, but slightly harder in the end. 10. Inside JABU'S belly. Correct me if I'm saying that wrong. In my mind, this stage is infamous for having you carry Princess Ruto around everywhere, and it only slightly reduces your movement though. As in, you can't use your items. You get the boomerang in this dungeon, which becomes very useful later in the game. It's useful in here, but not as useful as some other places. You can grab gold skulltulas with it, with the boomerang, and so on. I like how the stage has 3 bosses, but I only like the first one, honestly. It makes best use of the boomerang and it's fun to do. On the other hand, the second boss is really just annoying. The boomerang never really seems to hit the boss whenever you throw it. And it's literally just annoying to deal with. I hate going through it. It was extremely annoying to do. And the final boss of this dungeon sucks at times because when it's spinning, it's jellyfish around its body. It's hard as heck to hit it in the weak spot with an actual method. You literally just have to throw your boomerang randomly and hope that luck is on your side and it doesn't take you 16 years to get 1 hit on it. 9. Bottom of the well. This is considered a mini dungeon. There's no boss. It's just a way to get the Lens of Truth so you can complete the Shadow Dungeon. Like the Shadow Dungeon, the whole gimmick is walking and falling through walls and floors. Yep, you heard me completely right. You have to guess that you're supposed to walk through a wall. The skeletons that you'll find every once in a while say the same thing. After you get the Lens of Truth, you might as well just leave. You don't really have to do anything, but you're going to be completely disappointed when you get a blue ruby every single time you open a chest with 5 rubies. It's so pointless, and it sucks when you're going to think that you get something good, but then you end up getting 5 rubies. The secrets are well hidden though. Assuming that you're considered walking through random walls across from each other, well hidden at least, I guess. My favorite part about this dungeon is fighting Dead Hand. It's the only boss in the dungeon, and it's a mini boss really. You have to get caught by one of their hands. Well, you don't, but that's the way that most people do it. So you have to get caught with the hands of one of the mummy looking things. Well, could they come out? It's not a bad stage for a mini dungeon. It just fails to be better than all the other designs the other ones have. 8. Inside the Deku Tree. It's the first dungeon to do, and it still manages to be better than multiple others along the line. You'll be doing a lot of climbing on this one because you'll be going up a majority of the time, though. You also get the slingshot in the stage. Later on in the game, it's not as useful, but it's still pretty useful at times. It's not as much as, say, the bow and arrow because it kind of just replaces it. It's basically the same thing, kind of. Yeah, there's really no difference. It's just something you can use as an adult instead of a kid. There's also quite a bit of chests in this dungeon, too. And though most of it is not all as easy to get to, even if you have no experience with Zelda games, which is me besides this one, and it's understandable. I never would have thought that you had to jump on this big spider web in the middle of the first part of the dungeon. But the next room, which I like to consider the water room, was pretty annoying to deal with. It's a really annoying part of the dungeon. There's multiple platforming sections, lots of big skull tubs. The only thing you don't like about this dungeon, though, is the music. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't like the music. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to listening to the Spirit Temple OST every day, I don't know. 7. DODONGOS CAVERN. I didn't mention this earlier, but in the Deku Tree and the Cavern, Navy really does give you a ludicrous amount of unnecessary tutorials. At some point, she'll even tell you to just press the A button to open doors. That's in the Deku Tree, though. The music is really crazy to me, though. Take a listen to some of the parts that are insane. It's more of a cave than anything, honestly. It has lava around it, and while I was playing it, it seemed to just be weird to me. I never paid attention to the music, though. It's an incredibly secret dungeon. For the second one you'll be exploring random walls and even going through a maze section. But there's not really much to say about this dungeon. The stage design is pretty simple, like the Deku Trees. 6. The Forest Temple. This temple gets a lot of dang love, and I've honestly never really seen why it gets that much. It's of course not a bad dungeon, hence why it's so low down here, meaning better. It's just, I don't really have much of a fun time playing this. And while I had slightly more fun playing this than the Deku Tree, it's more simplistic than a bunch of the other dungeons. So it couldn't outshine any of the other Meadowland dungeons. Well, except the Water Temple, well, we don't talk about that. What I remember the most about this dungeon is the music, which is weird considering the music is not a part that I usually pay attention to most of the time. But in times like this, and few of the other dungeons, I actually pay attention to the music a lot. Very, very closely. My favorite part about this dungeon was the Twisted Room. It's hard to figure out and was annoying to go through. But I can say some good things about the dungeon, like the mid-boss, for example. Well, mid-bosses, I guess. You all fight them in the same way except for the final one. So there's 4. And the first and second one require you to shoot arrows and their paintings, and then you just chase them when they go out and then kill them. The third one makes you complete a puzzle. And let me tell you, I died on this one multiple times, but it was a good change of pace. And then you kill them the same way that you killed the first 2. The fourth and final one always spins around a bit longer, so you can easily tell which one of them it is. So when I totally missed the second of the boss while making the script, so what I'm saying is that it turns into multiple clones of itself, but the one that's not a clone always spins around for a little bit more, so you can tell which one it is. I don't know this at the start, but I wasted multiple of my hearts. Phantom Ganon is a pretty annoying boss, so I'll spare the details. I mean, I used to think it was my favorite boss in the game, but I mean, it's really annoying to do, honestly. I love how the outside looks. Though I'm talking about this one specific area, it still just looks amazing. But there's not really much to do out there besides getting a chest that, from what I remember, doesn't really have anything that's that useful. 5. GERUDO Fortress. This is what you do before you make your way to the Spirit Temple, which is unarguably the most beloved part about this game. You'll spend most of your time hiding from and killing the purple gods around the place. You'll also fight some GERUDO thieves to save them some carpenters. But funny enough, you can literally just spam your sword and plow through them. I don't have footage of this since I finished this game, and you get a Gerudo's card after defeating them all, which means you basically are just free to roam around without getting caught by them. So even if I wanted to do it, these wouldn't come out. At some point, I think you'll be riding a horse shooting targets worth, I think, 30 to 100 points each. The middle of like the circle is 100 points. 100 points is also for the pots. I usually just shoot the pots, which is funny considering I've only done it like once. Well, I've done it like 5,000 times since I'm trying to get 1,500, but I never managed to. It's a cool concept, but I just found it to be annoying to do, especially since it sucks to do it with the joystick or a Wii U Pro controller. There's also this thing called the Gerudo Training Ground. I could have made it be a entirely different stage, but you know, it's kind of just like a mini part of the Gerudo Valley, but I mean, I don't know. It's pretty hard to do, and I don't even remember what you get out of finishing it. Also, I didn't finish it, and it turns out you get an ice arrow. How useful. Okay guys, so before I continue on, I decided to record this whole other segment showing my last 3 dungeons on one entire different day because I'm an idiot. So I'm probably gonna sound like a little bit different, not that much different, but I'm probably gonna sound a little bit different. It's not 4 a.m. so I don't need to be quiet like my other video. So yeah. 4. The Shadow Temple. Like the bottom of the wall, the whole gimmick of this dungeon is going through and walking through walls. But I feel that it fits way better with this dungeon. The ship that you'll ride on eventually is also a cool addition though. You also get the hover boots in this dungeon. You can get past the first main room with it, so you're basically required to get it. The name is pretty self-explanatory. It makes quite a bit of use with the lines of truth though. There's also an insane amount of chests in this stage. I didn't actually end up really getting all of them though. I got most of them, not all of them. But a lot of them do troll you like the bottom of the wall and give you 5 rubies. As in 1 blue ruby. So I wouldn't be surprised if most, if not all of those chests had blue rubies in them. There's one room that has a very large amount of big skulltulas. And honestly, it's really annoying. I kept getting hit by them every single time. It didn't bother me much, but it's annoying to deal with. But to be honest, there's a few sections that could be less simplistic than they are, but it's not much of a problem. The dungeon also has a little puzzle section. Basically, you need to push this block and it'll stop the spikes from coming down from the ceiling and you're not going to get hit and die. There's 3 chests in the room as well, but from what I remember, they're not really that useful. The boss, Bongo Bongo, yeah, I know, really creative name, Nintendo. You know, with drum, where you have to hit the 2 hands and shoot the eye. You'll once again need the lens of truth to beat it so you can see the eye. Well, at least you're intended to have it on. You don't really need it for the boss, but it's a pretty good dungeon, but it's just not really my favorite particularly. 3. Ganon Castle. It's awfully simple for a final dungeon, honestly. Before the boss, there's 6 rooms to do, all based off of the dungeons you've done. Well, one of them is a light dungeon though, but that's not even an actual dungeon, so I don't understand. So there's the light, forest, water, fire, shadow, and spirit dungeons that have sections. Most of them are linear, and the fire one is kind of annoying, honestly. The shadow segment is my favorite though. It uses the lens of truth well. It makes great use of it. Then at the end of every segment, you'll have to shoot your light arrows at this glowing ball, then you'll be finished with the dungeon. Well, mini part of the dungeon, I guess. Rinse and repeat 6 times. It makes the dungeon sound worse than it really is, though. I had some fun playing it personally. It's just very easy for a final dungeon. I'll just spare the details of the second to final boss since it's really annoying and tedious. My favorite part about this is when you and Zelda are running down the castle trying to escape it before it collapses. But Zelda kind of just wastes your time and will run and take the wrong door like she doesn't know what she's doing. After that, you'll fight the final boss. I'll be honest, it's extremely easy. Well, not extremely, but it's pretty easy, honestly. So again, it turns into an abomination of a pig and a dragon. I say pig because of the nose. Well, no joke, like it literally looks like the nose of a pig. I don't even think that's the name, not even a nose, but whatever. And everything else about the boss's design is just a giant dragon, I guess some of a human, I guess. You can shoot the pig in the face with a light arrow to stun it, but I've always found that to be just unnecessary and it wastes his time. It's faster to just do it the regular way by rolling under Ganon when he tries to attack. That's what I did. Ganon smacks your Master Sword out of your hand at the start, so you have to use 2 things. Or you have an option. So, 1, the hammer, or 2, the giant sword. I think it's called the Giant's Knife, but I don't remember. But the Giant's Knife breaks easily, honestly. But it does have a bigger hitbox, but I don't really know if it does more damage or not. The hammer doesn't break, but has a smaller hitbox. I go for the hammer every time I play this boss because the giant sword is just unnecessary and really easy to break. And after that, you make the final blow and bam, you stab the pig Ganon in the head and he's a goner. 2. The Fire Temple. People most of the time don't really seem to like this dungeon much at all. The crazy thing about this temple is that there's a removed version of the music track in the stage. The removed version isn't much different from the official one, but there's chanting. I really see why they didn't keep it in the game after. Update, the tracks are in some other versions of the game, but I played the American version on the Wii U. Yeah, but you're going to be hearing that one in the background. There's multiple Gorons in the cells of the temple. After listening to them, they'll tell you a secret about the temple. The dungeon also has the most platforming out of any dungeon in the game. And you know me, platformers is the main genre that I play. Hence why you'll see Mario, Sonic, Donkey Kong, and Rayman videos on my channel, and nothing else besides that and Zelda, I guess, that isn't almost a platform. You also get a hammer in this dungeon. After getting it, you'll be using it a lot. You'll be bashing switches and a bunch more. There's a few rooms that people don't really like going through much. They're basically just puzzle rooms. You'll be pushing blocks and hitting crystals and quickly running to something that you can climb on. I didn't really find these sections to be annoying much. In fact, I actually enjoyed going through them. Most of the dungeon is just platforming most of the time, so having a puzzle room is very surprising but made sense. The only thing that I dislike about this dungeon is the boulder maze. As my made-up name applies, you're supposed to finish this maze with a bunch of boulders. Some would just think that they're just gonna be boulders staying still, blocking a path. But nah, man, these boulders move. That's not honestly that surprising to me, honestly, though. There is one room that is so dang scary to go through. There's literally a skinny little bit of surface to walk on, and it's the most nerve-wracking thing in this whole dungeon. And get this, you have to go through this part 2 times. As if I didn't piss my pants the first time, I'm gonna have to be wearing some diapers again after this. But I honestly really hated going through this section that I like to call the fire maze. I call it the fire maze because every single time you move to these like 74 poles, the fire decides to come out and give you a bad day. This part freaking sucks to deal with. I remember dying on it with no more fairies, and I got so screwed at the time. That was a lot to say though. So let's move on to my number 1 pick. Number 1, the Water Temple. Not JK, that's the most beloved dungeon in the game, the Spirit Temple. The dang music is just amazing, man. This game's got some great music, but nothing stands a chance at all against this theme. The most unique thing about this dungeon is that you have to go through it twice. You have to go through half of it as an adult and half of it as a kid. I don't mean the whole dungeon. You have to do the first half as a kid, like I said, then the other 50% as an adult. This dungeon is also the one that gives you the mirror shield, and also the silver gauntlet. The silver gauntlet is the item that you can promise Nabaru to give her after she tells you to give the silver gauntlets to her. You never really know what's coming next, whether you need to use your DEKU sticks to light up some torches, or reflecting the mirror in your shield with the sunlight. And I really love fighting the Iron Knuckles. It's just so fun to do. I have a tactic to beat them easily as well. I don't know if you played through the Spirit Temple or not. I want to assume you haven't, but I'm still gonna say it. So you immediately hit them once, then you immediately backflip. You have to do it quickly or else you're gonna get hit. So yeah, it's pretty easy though. After getting the silver gauntlets, Nabaru gets taken by the bosses of the dungeon. I'll speak on that later. And trust me, that was only me talking about the child part of the dungeon. The mirror shield becomes very useful as an adult. There's going to be multiple sections where you're using your mirror shield to reflect the light on a small little sun. The dungeon has such clever level design, and it's so fun to do. And right before you get to the boss, you need to reflect the sunlight onto the face of some stone to get in the room. The fuse will eventually melt, allowing you to get to the boss. But I'm be honest, doing that with a Wii U Pro Controller really sucks. I talked about the joystick with the Pro Controller earlier, but here it's like, so no, my dad had to do it, I couldn't. Now, you get to the boss. Twin Robot. The two twins both have powers, the fire and ice. One of them will shoot a beam of their power, so if the fireman shoots their beam, you'll have to reflect it back on the other twin that uses ice. They do it multiple times, and there's a second phase. They fuse together and make a human-looking version of themselves, which is kind of hilarious. It's kind of the same thing as last time. They're both going to shoot their power at you, and you have to store it in your shield. Then after you store it in your shield 3 times, it's automatically going to shoot back. Then you're going to have to hit them and then rinse and repeat. Then the boss is done. The design of this dungeon is absolutely amazing, and I couldn't see me putting any other dungeon at number 1. That sure was a lot to talk about, man. Thanks for watching this video. I have like one of the Zelda video that's uploaded already, so go watch that if you enjoyed on this video, and go watch what's about to be on screen if you like this one as well. And peace.